Let me open with a quote from the Analects of Confucius. Zigong asked the master, "Is there any single word that could guide one's entire life?" The master said, "Should it not be reciprocity? What you do not wish for yourself, do not do to others." This is the negative golden rule. Do not do to others what you wouldn't wish for yourself. And we've discussed this in class a lot, and I think it's my biggest takeaway because of the East-West comparison, where the West says, do to others what you would want done to yourself, whereas the Chinese version, the version that originated from Confucius, is the opposite way around. Don't do to others what you wouldn't want done to yourself. And it's a fundamental difference that we've explored between Chinese culture and Western culture. Whereas Western culture is so aggressive and dominating, Chinese culture is more patient, more passive, and I think that's something that we could all learn from. And so I'm going to start with one of the Sage Kings, Yu, Emperor Yu. And this negative golden rule really applies to transforming virtue as well. And if you remember that story, Yu, a barbarian emperor, a barbarian leader, is not submitting to you. He refuses to talk to you. And Yu sends his army to try and conquer this barbarian, and it doesn't work. His army lays siege to them for days and days, and nothing happens. And then Yu comes up with an idea. He says, "Let me spread the virtue among his people. Let me show them why they should join us, why we're better, why we're more virtuous than this barbarian leader." And that's exactly what they do. And the story goes that 70 days later, this barbarian emperor submitted, and so basically it's the power of being patient and showing people why they should do something, why what you're doing is better, what you did, why he was more virtuous than the barbarian, why the people would be happier under his rule than the barbarian. That's this fundamental sort of passive, patient, virtuous Chinese ideology that I really think is my biggest takeaway. And so the next thing I want to talk about is during the Ming Qing, where this shows up, is where the Western. This is a perfect example because it shows how the Western world could take this and an incident in history that could have been prevented had Westerners been using the negative golden rule instead of the positive golden rule. So this is the Tianjin massacre with the nuns, the French nuns, who took care of orphans in their church. And so, if you remember, what the nuns do is they see all of these orphans and they feel sad and they want to take care of them. And what they do is they start aggressively going after people to give them orphans, to bring orphans to them so that they could take care of them. They started offering money rewards to people who brought in orphans to the church. And what happened was people who were definitely not virtuous were kidnapping children and bringing it to the church. And of course, when you start threatening people's children, what the nuns were doing was indirectly threatening all of these children. And so, the people in the community rebelled, and eventually tensions got so high that they went to the Catholic Church and they burned the nuns alive, all 16 of them. And just think about what would have happened if the nuns were following the negative golden rule. what they would have done is they would have put out word that they were ready to take care of orphans, that orphans who needed help, um, who needed shelter, who needed food, who needed clothing, could come to them. They wouldn't have offered any reward whatsoever. They, they would have thought about the consequences of that, how people might not like that at all because of what it would lead to. And so if they had been more patient, more passive, they would showed how virtuous they were, how what they were doing was good. Community would have, over time, would have given them the orphans that they wanted to take care of. Orphans would have come themselves. Slowly but surely, with that patience, orphans would have been taken care of. But you see how this what doesn't seem like that big of a difference is actually a massive difference in the real world. Whether you're patient and passive or you're aggressively going after people with the positive golden rule. And of course this is the whole concept of missionaries, is to spread the word of Jesus Christ, because Jesus Christ is our Savior, and so we have to make sure that everybody is saved by Jesus Christ, and from their own sins. And this is one huge thing where we really could learn from Confucius and just Chinese culture in general. Finally, what I want to talk about is how it really, not only does it show up in the legendary sage emperors and could have helped people, it demonstrates how foreigners did the exact opposite during the Ming and Qing dynasties, wave 4. It relates to today. It is huge today. And in fact, a lot of Chinese commentators have been talking about Hong Kong and Taiwan and how this transforming virtue really connects to this. So in 1996, the British handed over Hong Kong to China. And so it was a huge deal. And Hong Kongers were really scared. They were scared that China was going to go in, going to change everything, the education system. But you know what China did? They did nothing. When they got Hong Kong, they let Hong Kong run as it was running. And in fact, they made it better. Crime rates went down. Organized crime, especially the triads, completely disappeared. But Hong Kong was pretty much left untouched, and people still today can protest. There are elections for some smaller level government seats, even though the chief executive of Hong Kong is basically elected by the Communist Party. But they surprised everybody. They didn't touch Hong Kong. They let the Hong Kong people have what they wanted, which was no real political, social change. And how is this transforming virtue? Well, if we think of Taiwan, China wants Taiwan to be part of China again. I mean, of course they claim that Taiwan is still part of China, but really it's a sovereign state right now. It's operating by itself. The Communist Party has no control over it. And so what message the Communist Party is trying to send is, hey, look at what we did to Hong Kong. We've only brought them more benefits. We've done nothing bad to them. We've left them as it is. Do you see how virtuous we are? Do you see what we're doing? If you come join us, nothing's gonna happen to you. You are just gonna get more benefit. There's no reason for you not to join us. So this idea of transforming virtue and just showing people how why they should join with you instead of trying to force them and aggressively recruit them. It's just this huge divide that I really think the Western world can seriously learn from, and something that we have to keep in mind whenever we're dealing with people of the Chinese culture, whenever we're in China, passive, patient, virtuous is the right way to go instead of aggressive, impatient, and probing. Really is how I would describe it. So that was definitely, I think that was definitely my biggest takeaway. And yeah, thank you.